There's some white.
Elena from Greece is saying what up. Do they do explosions over there in Greece? Do you guys do fireworks? Are they like way into it? I wonder if it's like an America thing, you know?
Yeah, well, I think it's a
It's like
human
in our
thing.
national
Just,
anthem. And the
yeah,
bombs bursting in air. Like we're into it, you know?
stuff needs to explode. So
Rockets, red glare, bombs bursting in air. Like people
yeah,
are like religious about this. Just
yeah,
they want to see stuff blow up in the sky.
yeah. There was a big man. The crowd at the fireworks I saw last night was whooping and cheering and like it was one of the most amazing fireworks shows I have ever seen in my life. It's really, and it just happened in the small town of Williams, Arizona. I mean, they went over the top, over the top. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know that feeling when something explodes and you feel your chest move from it, or you're at a
Yeah.
big concert and sound the lower sounds are
Yeah,
just so loud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Shockwaves.
Dude, they were happening in such rapid succession that it gave my father-in-law PTSD episode. It was like real, like a legit like he was like, I'm not doing this again. It was crazy.
Concert?
No, the fireworks. When the final show came, you know, you hear boom, boom, boom. They got them shooting up, boom, boom. Hey, that's what we should do. We should paint some fireworks. That'd be cool, huh? And do some fireworks.
Yeah,
so,
I'm into it, man.
So, anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, it was in such rapid succession that it was like boom, 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 and then it started going. Brrr, you couldn't count the explosions, and it started thumping. You know, I had an adrenaline rush that made the needles in the bottom of my feet. You know what I mean? Does that happen to anybody else? I get in the bottom of my feet. It's like,
bottom of your feet?
Yeah, I get that. Like when the adrenaline surge, like the fight or flight adrenaline, you get startled. Someone jumps. Your child jumps out of the hallway. Rah! You know, it starts
needles. Yeah,
needles. I get them in the bottom of my feet, like real, real bad.
Yeah.
So I had that happened. Well, I'm just trying to tell you that this was not normal. Just trying to. Uh-oh. Hang on. I got to plug in my laptop battery. It's going to die. That was my battery. My laptop battery. The thing that's running the show. It's all going to crash.
Battery's going to die. Dude. Laptop battery's going to die. We got
hurry. We got seconds and that notification comes up.
Yeah.
My bad.
Well, okay, if this all ends in a few seconds, you guys.
No, it's like that. I always forget something. All right. Grass. This is my favorite way to do it.
We got Colorado in the building today. What's up, Colorado? Tom up there. We got Joppa.
Nice.
Up in New York. We got Carolina and Chile. Self-taught. Carolina is self-taught.
Nice. Okay, that's cool.
Very thankful because Joe also Carolina todavía. Mural Joe es autodidacta, as you put it, autodidacta. He's self-taught.
Wow. Didacta? So, is that how you say it? Didacta?
That's the way. That is the way.
Okay. Cool. Nice. Well,
Netherlands. What up? Are Netherlands in here too? Look at that. Netherlands. Fort Worth. Mike.
Nice. Thanks for being here, everybody. Yeah, it is indeed. All right. I like the idea of some fireworks exploding. Let's do a little bit of that. We'll get it done quick and we'll have time for more stuff. I'm gonna make a dark silhouette of a meadow. Grass, I always do grass black and yellow, add more colors if needed, but usually black and yellow gets it done. Just a bunch of vertical strokes, and I pay attention to the colors separating. See here, this is a good distinction. If you try this method, then you'll notice that there's sometimes you get real smooth flowing lines. The paint needs to be heavy enough for that. And so when it starts getting real light, you're being careful is what's happening. You're trying not to put too much paint on the canvas. Problem is that when you do that, you don't have the paint you need to move around. We like to tie these things to meaningful philosophical points of life. There's a lot of things in life where being careful just doesn't give you enough to work with.
Yeah.
It's like that. You gotta get over the being careful and just put a heavy enough amount of paint and just go at it with the black and yellow.
Risk-reward proposition,
Yeah. Well, when you're trying to really preserve the painting, I can understand
your
the
risk
being careful.
is you got to take the risk. You got to get the paint on there. You just got to swing for it,
Yeah.
Like you can't be cautious.
Yeah. Something that's similar. We'll take our little boat out on the lake and trying to learn how to do all the water sports, skiing, wakeboarding, wake surfing. There's all these behind the boat sports. It's just fun. And so you have to tug on a rope and it has to pull you up out of the water. And so it's nerve-wracking when you're back there for the first time. You're like, okay, I'm in the water and I got this strange object strapped to my feet. And so what's going to happen? Like the first time you're doing it, you're trying to get the information you need to not mess up. And that's just like not messing up is just not an option. You just have to commit to the mess up process. That's it. You just got to commit to it. Say, well, we just got to get you up on the water so you can feel what it's like. You're gonna crash. That's just how it's gonna be,
Yeah.
You got to get the emotion.
I've thought of it this way before, on like matters of courage, because it takes courage, right? That's what I've kind of honed it down to. Is it I'm really dealing with the issue of courage? Do I have the courage to try something that makes me vulnerable, and like I might have my ego hurt, or I might feel things that are unpleasant. So it takes courage to make stuff and share it,
Yeah.
And so, when you're dealing with a matter of courage, what you really want to do is, you got to take chances. You got to take creative chances. And
I see where you're going.
What I'm really trying to do is just set myself up for the opportunity for good things to happen. Because if you don't create that opportunity for good things to happen, then it's not going to happen. It's pretty simple. And so setting up that scenario so that good things can happen is really the name of the game, And getting paint on that canvas, playing with stuff, getting reps in, that's how you create that environment.
Yeah, create the environment. Yeah, you're right about that. This is how I feel about a lot of things. You got to creating the I think
like you're trying to set up a place where it can grow from,
Yeah.
It's not so much like controlling it and forcing a thing into existence because you had such a specific vision for it and such expert control of the medium that, Joe decides and therefore it exists. Is it also you just knowing what is going to be a fertile environment for inspiration, a fertile environment for attractive images, and you just head that direction?
Man, that is a lot. I think that's a real good description. That sounds to me like there's definitely a lot of that going on. Setting up the environment with the confidence that it's going to deliver results, and then muscle memory has been there before, so you just are triggered by things that happen during the painting process. This is the disclaimer is this is a particular type of creative process right here where I don't have an outcome that needs to happen. This is just free painting. It might be different if I'm doing a portrait. it might be a little bit different spin on the same concept. But I think setting up environments is really important. We definitely have to, as I think it's worth paying attention to that when the environment is set, the right things grow. You don't have to go and hunt. I always wondered, like, how do people discover these crazy recipes that require yeast or some kind of culture? Like, how do you like, do people go and collect the little baby yeast from an environment somewhere and then like, where do you find it? No, all you do is build the environment and it's just there. It's just there. It happens on its own.
I've learned this too about like in work and my job and everything. Like I came out to LA, to Hollywood, like a dreamy artist, like so many morons before me, and we'll follow after.
That's funny.
Like we come out here with no certainty, no leads, no connections, nobody cares, and it's crowded. Like how do you get your footing in an environment like that? There are more talented people everywhere. There are harder working people everywhere. There are better looking people everywhere. So what do you do? What you do, I've learned, is you nurture that environment from which employment can happen, right?
Right.
Whatever job you can find. You talk to whoever will talk. You serve whoever has need, And
the activity, what you're describing is is staying real busy, being active.
Like nurturing, just tilling that soil. I'm not erecting a plant. I'm tilling the soil so that the plant can grow.
It's just going to grow. It's a fascinating concept. Is that I think it's real hard. It's real hard to understand that concept when you're very young. And in my opinion, just speaking from my experience, I think it didn't come naturally in the first quarter of my life.
It's a hard pill to swallow, as a young person. You're like, so you're telling me the only way there is really, really far from here?
So you don't, you've been through school and everything has directions, everything has instructions, and there's this way that it's supposed to be, and then there's this life that's very contrary to that says, there is no guarantee, there are no directions. What do you want to happen? It starts with you deciding where you want to go. I don't know where I want to go. What am I supposed to do? Well, there is no supposed to. And it's all very confusing because
no one else knows what they're doing either. Surprise.
Right. So, I think elements of that can stick with you all your life and be very paralyzing.
Round Brush has an interesting question. Also, just before that, I want to say, how interesting is it that 1 second we hear from Sharon, good morning from California. And then 1 second later, we hear from Coronia, hi, everyone from Australia.
That's cool,
opposite sides of this planet.
Hi, everyone. That's cool.
Seconds apart, we got what up from other sides of the sphere, man. So, Sharon, Coronia, you guys just made a connection right through the circumference of the sphere. Thank you for making that happen. I want to bring up Round Brush's comment here. Also, Mavis says here's a great video on visualizing what you want.
Oh, nice.
But she didn't provide a link, so maybe she's talking about you, Joe. Maybe she's talking.
No. It sounds like the link needs to go with that. Maybe there's a restriction.
YouTube doesn't let you share links. They don't like that. They don't want spam. So sorry, Mavis.
Email it. Mavis, you have my email. Email it to me.
I'll email it. So Round Brush wants to know, in this early stage here, right? So you just got some green. You got 25 people in here that are looking at your green scribbles on a white canvas, and they're wondering, per our conversation about creating an environment, not knowing what you're making exactly, just letting it grow. How much of what you're going to paint do you see now?
Well, I have my, I see a lot of it.
Here's what he says. Do you see your end goal now?
Yeah. I do, but it's my initial end goal, you know. It's like that. Definitely, I have a lot of room in my expectations for that to change. Yeah. So my initial idea, as we've been talking, it just was, as we've been talking, it's taking shape in my imagination, and I'm seeing, oh, I want a gradient on this field that it gets brighter as it goes back to where the fireworks are exploding. That'll be kind of cool. I want like a country meadow scene with a little bit of water, so I can put some fireworks reflecting off of it. And that all just was just kind of coming into my mind as I'm painting. But there's a whole lot of room for it to not be that if some fun thing happens. You know, it's just an initial direction to go. It's very relaxing for me to respond to whatever is going well in a painting, because you don't get to do that when there's a mission. When you're working for customers regularly, it's like this is what the end goal needs to look like, and there's not a lot of room to just say, oh wow, this kind of makes me think of this, and then just go that direction with it. So I really enjoy the evolution of the painting.
I like to think of it as like the difference between trying to swim across a lake versus floating down whitewater rapids. You know?
Yeah.
In one instance, you're like, that other side of the shore is where I want to be. Yeah. That body of water is the obstacle, and I'm going to, with grit, with work, with whatever, I'm gonna just push across until I get to that shore, because I know that's where I gotta be. That's one way of doing it. That's how I do work for people that are they have expectations of what I'm gonna deliver, you know.
Yeah, right.
The other way, which you're probably doing now, perhaps, is floating down the flow. You know, there's this flow, and you're just like, oh, let's just see where this flows to. You know, let's just sit on top of this water as it moves around. Let's continue the movement so that it's going somewhere, and you know, new things happen around each bend and twist, and by the end of it, who knows? You know, we don't know what the other side or what the end of this river is, but it's going to be awesome to float it. You know,
the number of hours I put into the muscle memory. I say that because I don't have a better word, you know, but just that instant reaction to being a texture, a technique, and a texture, just being able to paint on demand whatever I want to see. The number of hours I put into doing practice boards as opposed to finished paintings at this point in my life has really started paying off in this way, because I don't feel the need to have a plan in order to have a good looking picture, because everything that happens will have like trail options. I go this way, I go that way. I see something, I immediately associate something it could be turned into, and I immediately have a technique in mind it's just from the thousands of hours of doing test boards with techniques, you know. So it's like if I see something that kind of resembles a rock, I quickly, it's all committed. And so it's very relaxing at this point. It wasn't always that way.
I mean, how different is what you're doing than, you know, taking a stroll through a wilderness and discovering as you stroll a little rock, a little stream, a little you know, like you're doing that, only instead of the universe presenting itself to you, you're familiar with this universe, and you're just taking a imaginary journey through this land, but nevertheless discovering it just the same as it presents itself. When you wander through it, you know.
Well, there's different personality types. There's people that really enjoy. There's therapy in following instruction well. You know, like Lego really tapped into that. with their movies. Like master builders are maybe not the same as people who are real good at executing the instructions.
Yeah, my wife loves paint by number.
Yeah, there's this relaxing, very enjoyable process in there, right? But I'm not interested in that. That's not what brings me excitement. You know, it's just a different motivation when you sit down, different thing that brings you excitement.
Yeah. Just want to say welcome, Gail Lucas from Saint Tropez, France.
All right,
what
nice.
Up, France? What up, my fellow Californian? I saw you up here. Who are you, Jonathan? John. Yeah, Jonathan Scott. What up in California?
Hey, welcome, Jonathan. Thanks for being here.
Yes, it's a lovely day in California.
Is it?
Can't complain. It's always a lovely day in California, man. That's why there's so many people here.
Nice. Look, here's a fun little trick with grass. You can take a little bit of orange or red, you know, depending on what colors you like. Find some dark paint that's still wet and put some of that orange color in there. And when it mixes with the existing green color, it makes dirt. And then you just kind of stroke it up into the shadows. Because the dirt exists in the shadow, you know, it's down low, so it's always going to be surrounded by shadow. So if you take that orange color, and then of course a gradient is a big help. You know, if we just make a brightest spot, then it'll be like we made the earth exposed in this little spot with just a dab of orange inside of a shadow. These shadows it's kind of a fun thing, knowing where you can plug stuff. Like seeing where things can be plugged in is a real advantage in painting. It feels good. It's a fun thing.
Pieces together.
Yeah. There's opportunities that are there, and so I try to point them out.
That's true. You know, that is a big part of it in my experience. Is like that, that not. And speaking to not knowing exactly what you're gonna make, you know.
Yeah.
Big part of the joy in the process for me is when, you know, if you're putting a puzzle together, everybody's put puzzles together, and you're looking at the different puzzle pieces, and you're like, you know, this piece and that piece, and they look like they might fit, and if I rotate that, and then all of a sudden it goes click, and there's this squirt of dopamine in your brain, and you're just like,
a squirt of dopamine. That's good.
You know what I mean? It's just like,
yes.
And you like rub your hand across the two pieces, and you feel the smoothness.
Totally.
You feel that they belong together. You know,
I relate to that. Yeah.
There's no separation in these pieces. A match that works has been made, and you're just like, I want more.
More of that. Yeah. Man, something feels right about that. No, that's got to be a deep-rooted. I don't want to go too deep too fast, but this is a fascinating thing to me. Is how much we cling to that mysterious satisfaction of finding a fit, making things fit. And so we talked about this earlier before the live stream. We were batting around ideas, you know, it's Ben and I. And the cursed thought of this shouldn't be happening came up. And the opposite of that thought is, well, this feels right. This just feels right. And you just have to say it. You know, it's like when that happens, it's just like you described. It's your hand, you know, running over it. You're like, yeah, all right. Yeah, this is cool, you know. And that snap, when something snaps into place, so satisfying. But I think it taps into that deep desire that we have to see things fit. All the supposed tos. We have this sense of supposed tos in life, and it can be so broken, but at the same time, so satisfying when it happens the way we want.
Yeah. Tom Heaney, what up, Tom? He's saying, what kind of paint are you squirting from those ketchup bottles?
It's just wall paint. Right. Yeah, maybe I need my own line of paint. This one was the stock gloss black from the Home Depot, and it was just something on the shelf. There was a factory black. They're all wall paints. This one is from Sherwin-Williams. This one is from California Paints because it was leftovers. I just go to paint stores and say, hey, I like that color. Will you give me that color in a deep base? Ultra deep base is typically what I ask for. And then I get as much of it, get as much of the pigment shot into that as possible. All right, I'm thinking I need a shoreline. This is going to go out to, maybe this will be a lake right here going off in the distance. I used to wonder, I'd get to this point in a painting and I'd be painting in front of people. And I would wonder while I'm talking, trying to multitask, I'm thinking, how am I going to make this look right? And that's been a mile marker.
Hold on, Joe's got to get some marbles out of his mouth.
Yeah, a mile marker.
It's
been a mile marker, which of course, if you're not in a mile observing country, then I don't know what you're saying is. Do you still use that idiom? That's an idiom. A mile marker,
like
significant checkpoint,
legs, right? Isn't that about 3,700 legs long?
Yeah. There's an SNL skit.
Over here in the States, we like to just use body parts to measure stuff,
Yeah.
Oh, that's about a toe's length.
Here.
It's like 36 toes long.
Yeah. That's funny because just yesterday I was doing a job where I was putting my arms out. I was like, that's 6 feet right there. And I'm like, my professional measurements, finger to finger. Yeah. That's 6 feet. Okay, let's get it. This is the way we measure.
It's been 6 feet for the last 20 years, man. It's still 6 feet.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have an idiom like that. I would really like to know, because we say, oh, I hit a real mile marker in life, but if you're not observing miles, like that makes no sense.
Yeah, I hit a real kilo marker today, Joe.
Yes. What a kilo!
Really arrived at the
right.
The last,
and it doesn't flow.
Journey.
A kilometer marker doesn't roll off the tongue. You know what I mean?
Kilometer marker. No.
Yeah, I read it.
It sounds clumsy.
Yeah. So do you just say the same thing?
Yeah, Coronilla in Espanol, she's using that saying.
Mile marker? Yeah, because
that's the wrong corn. That's Coronilla. She's English. Carolina. Está hablando español. I got to keep this straight, Joe.
Okay, yeah. I mean, don't misrepresent people.
I'm over here with that multi-bilingue, bro.
Dude, we got to get versed in some language. Okay, so
Wolfpack Studios say, "What up, Joe Ben? What up, Wolfpack?
Hey."
Also,
thanks for being here.
I like this dark and dramatic sky we got going here. Where are we going with this dark and dramatic sky?
Well, I need contrast set up for some fireworks.
Oh, that's right.
I need dark so that I can make some fireworks really glowing.
Yeah.
We got to put a night sky, and the glow on the grass is going to be.
Joe, it's not miles, it's milestone.
Milestone. Well, I say mile marker. Doesn't everybody aren't we all familiar with mile markers?
But maybe that's like a Northern Arizona thing, right? Because there was a spot that we used to hang out when we were teenagers called Mile Marker. So maybe that's what we're thinking.
I got it wrong. I
would say mile marker too. I would say mile marker in a second.
Yeah, mile marker. Yeah. It's funny when you say that. So this is a
kilo clicker. Ooh, Tom says maybe kilo clicker.
I'm gonna start saying that around
the old kilo clicker. I reached the old kilo clicker today.
It's not. Yeah. What are you talking about? The need. So this is like this is a nagging. This need to say what's supposed to be said, do what's supposed to be done. It's terrible. Yeah. It's paralyzing. It kills you. And, I experience it when I just say a silly thing like mile marker. It's like, wait a minute. Is that the right thing to say? When there is no consequence, that like we're all like trying to learn as we're born into this mysterious world. We're all trying to figure out how it works and what to do, but somehow we're always looking to somebody else for a prescription.
Yeah. Well, gosh, man, do I have opinions about that?
Well, let's be easy on the throttle.
Platform to share some opinions, Joe. You know,
let's hear some opinions.
Let's hear some. When you say that, the first thing I think of is, well, where did his sense that there is a way things ought to be and a way that things ought not to be, where does that come from? And why?
It's built in.
Like, why the very aggressive attention to that?
Why?
You know, my first response is examine why in the world do you think there is an ought to?
Yeah. Right.
Like, is there anything ought to do? You know, like, some of us are not equipped with the ability to walk or think or see, or, you know, some of us take one breath and die. Some of us don't even make it out of the womb.
Yeah, that's true.
They have done something, or
is there not to? Yeah, does it exist?
Let's see what happens if we throw life against the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah, there's a very blurry definition there. Like, what is the meaning of supposed to or ought to or should? What is even the meaning of that? Where does it come from?
Yeah. I'm really, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to suggest this for anyone, but in my life right now, I'm really examining the possibility that being alive is the only thing I ought to do, because everything else is so much about things out of my control.
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily anything I ought to do, but just like appreciate this life that I was given. Otherwise it was wasted on me, I feel, you know?
Yeah.
And like, maybe that's the only ought to. Other than that, it's so random. I've seen so many things that wanted to be a thing or do a thing not succeed. And I've seen so many things that were incredibly successful at a goal be completely worthless.
Yeah.
To everything around it, you know, like,
yeah. Interesting.
So is there a better way, or is there just ways, you know, and we latch on to this notion that there is a right or a wrong picture to paint, a right or a wrong thing to say, you know?
Yeah.
I just,
I think there's a better way.
But it's just so messy. It's just so messy to be a person. I have a hard time saying it ought to be anything. It's like, what shape ought a mud puddle be? I don't know. Whatever shape hole it landed in, you know?
Yeah, man, it's a plaguing thought. It finds its way in. And the truth is, we do want to live in the realm of things being as they should be, because that feels good. We you know, I think it's perfectly human, just perfectly as in completely relatable and human to want to have things as they should be in your perception of should. You know, like, that's the really ordinary desire, right?
Well, you know, we're pattern seeking creatures. You know, we're trying to identify patterns so that we can survive. We can respond to these patterns, leverage these patterns, work with these patterns. And so when it clicks, when it jives, when it makes sense with the patterns, you know, we feel that it's right, that it's good.
It's right. You know? This is good.
This is good. When it rubs against patterns, when it causes our demise, you know, that was what we ought not to have done, perhaps. You know, maybe we shouldn't have walked out into the desert with no water. Patterns would suggest you're going to die, you know.
You know, it's funny.
So therefore, you ought not to walk out into the desert with no water.
You ought not. You ought not, because we're all so familiar with the consequence. I think consequence is more powerful than the accurate definitions. So here's a. Did I have this on that the whole time? Was I just painting?
No, man, we were watching you paint. That's cool.
Okay, that's good. So.
No, people get restless if it's a bad shot for too long, man. They'll chime up. They'll be like, "You guys are boring. Change that shot."
No, that's good. That's very helpful. It's good to say so. Well, isn't it funny that when you're at coffee club, you're talking about, or you're at business meeting and you're talking ideas, and then at the end, it can be the worst. Actually, it happens more if it's a terrible, boring meeting. And then that's when everyone starts saying, well, this was good that we did this. It's self-reassurance. This is good. Yeah, this was good. This was good. I'm glad we did this. And the more you say it, the more everyone knows in their mind that it wasn't good. It was a total waste of time. It's like the more you say it, the more it tips everybody off to, okay, we're reassuring ourselves because it sucked. I experience that all the time. Well, this was good. Yeah, this was good. Yeah, we should this. We needed to do this. We really needed to. Ben, this live stream was good.
We're also storytelling creatures. That's what you're experiencing there, I think, is,
telling yourself
not
the story.
liking the story that's being told. So they're going to actively just be, it's called revisionist history is what it is. It's when you tell a different story about the past than what is probably more accurate, to what happened,
Yeah. All right.
But you need that good story. You're not going to feel great going through your day if you got some bummer of a story about how you spent your time,
So I think the better way, instead of framing everything in like in the prescribed supposed tos, you know what I mean? So an example, I think examples are good. You're supposed to have your retirement figured out. You're supposed to have a plan. You're supposed to have insurance. You're supposed to have, now I'm speaking from my prescribed worldview. In the United States of America, it is widely disliked if you don't have certain things in place. So you're supposed to have insurance that covers you in case of emergencies that you can't afford. You're supposed to have some savings that is a particular percentage of your income. Okay, so while we are experiencing all of these supposed tos, a huge percentage of the population is born and passes away without having any access to it at all. They can't have, there's a huge number of people that will never have insurance, that will never have a retirement, that will never have, but somehow somebody made it widely accepted that this is supposed to happen, and that if it isn't happening, then you are in the realm of out of place. You are out of line. You are off. You are a thing that should not be. I think that's the awful effect of it.
Yeah. Well, it's aspirational. It's aspirational. It's tricky to have a creature like a human being that pops out in so many different shapes and sizes and cognitive abilities. It's difficult to have something that comes out in so many different ways, but to apply a blanket prescription as to what it ought to do with its life and time,
You really ought to do this. You should know
it's merely aspirational. It's like, it would be good for people to have prosperity and security and predictability in their lives.
We would like it.
So live a life just fine without those things.
I mean, who's to say what's just fine and what's not? There's what we like, there's what we don't like. So this is where I think consequence is the most powerful thing. It's the world of if then has served me well in my artwork. If I use this technique, then I can accomplish this particular look that will be perceived as trees reflecting on water. It's a if then relationship, but what it's not is you're supposed to take the brush and do horizontal strokes when you paint a scene like that. You're supposed to put reflection on this. It's all just if then. It's this creative process really brings out you're the inventor here. You decide what you want to do.
This is not a turn into very sad territory. This is just true.
It's just
insightful, but Joe and I, we've lost a little brother. So he made it to 27. He got very sick and he passed away. So at that moment in time, this was a while ago. So more than a decade. At the time, I thought to myself, he really deserved to live, right? I was like, if anything, this kid deserved to live. He was a beautiful kid.
I can relate to that for sure.
Sunshine and love and warmth everywhere he went. He was a little ornery and kid-like, but
yeah, we all love Johnny. Yeah, we all had that protected.
Get what they deserve. I feel like he deserved to last longer than 27. You know, however, he did not. He did not. No matter how much he deserved it, no matter how much I wanted it, no matter how much anybody prayed, no matter how many rain dances were done, the kid didn't have it in the cards.
Yeah.
Life
so how
doesn't give us what we deserve? It just happens.
Yeah, it just gives you a deal. Yeah.
The illusion that we're controlling this or that there's like some sort of merit, based system, it's just absurd. And
it doesn't make sense.
Or it doesn't check out with what I've experienced,
Yeah. Well, if I take it, if I practice
Tom puts it this way, he says, man makes plans, God laughs. It's like
that's good. I like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
It's like, we can really like hypothesize and project about what we ought to do or how we ought to be. Or our little brother could have made retirement plans and everybody would have been like, oh, he's doing so well. But then it's like there's no life to retire into.
Yeah.
So what ought to have done with his 27 years, Yeah.
Yeah. If you knew the future.
It's just not. It's not going to be helpful to measure your circumstances now with what you think they should have been by now. That is a fast track to misery.
Oh man, yeah, you should be doing better than this by now. You're 45, brother.
Oh my goodness, dude. That will crush you so bad.
This should be, man. I hate that stuff. And I see people deal with that in painting, in the realm of painting and instruction is, I'm not getting this, why am I not getting this? And that plagues people so much. But there's just endless possibilities that are very, very understandable, relatable, acceptable possibilities of why something is not going as well as you want it to. And you have, first, for the sake of survival, it's good to leave room for yourself to be an anomaly. You gotta just let it be, because we are all, in my opinion, an anomaly in nature. Like, you don't get a second round brush Steve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, you know what they say, the fact that we exist at all is miraculous, because how many other little spermies didn't make it? You're one of a million just because you're breathing,
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, so
I called everybody in this room little spermies.
Little spermies. Yeah. Yeah.
Brush is a little spermy. Tom's a little spermy.
I don't like that. Jonathan, okay. Enough. Oh man. That's going too far.
Hey, well, creative. Sometimes it doesn't work for you. Sometimes it doesn't work. Hey, so we're gonna do fireworks on this moody, dark situation.
That's it. Yeah, we're gonna totally change the vibe. My paint wasn't covered. If I would have,
awesome. Joe, it's gonna be awesome when you put bright light in a dark environment. You've set up an environment where good things can happen.
Thanks. That's the goal. You're right. We're making this sound very meaningful with that. I had to do 2 coats because I had a white background. So, as long as we got some good contrast going, we'll have what we need. You don't have to have it be too clean.
Yeah, I'm going to get coffee, Joe. You keep painting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I love the concept of challenging my route as an artist, my path as an artist in my career has been very unique, and I'm very glad about it, but it required sacrificing my paradigm of what I ought to be accomplishing, because I found myself very unable to finish paintings. And that's a problem when you're trying to be an artist for a living. It's kind of nice if you have some artwork to show people, if you're an artist. And when everything you have to show people are incomplete starts, just starts of painting, Oh, you just really don't feel proud of that. That was a hard thing. So then when I discovered that I could just be commissioned to paint something on someone's wall, I was like, well, maybe this is a better route for me to go. And then I discovered that I needed to learn the skill of making something look finished, but it kind of relieved me of the need to have a collection of pieces that could be put in a gallery. And then the next thing for me to let go of was the need to be good enough, to have a portfolio that was good enough. I had to just completely let that go because it was killing me. It was too far out of reach. So I can't be like, and these are very widely prescribed things. If you go to like how to make it as an artist um, discussion anywhere, I think you're going to see a whole lot of get a portfolio together, have some finished pieces. And I'm not trying to disagree. I'm just saying I had to invest myself in what was truly unique about myself and not let that be formed by the existing expectations. I really had to do that for my own survival. So now I'm glad. Now I have something to show for it, but it did take some time. It did take some time and investment. I needed to be okay with producing things that didn't look great because I had to have time and room to experiment. I had to let go of my ego, let a mural be on a wall for years and years that probably doesn't represent what I'm capable of, but it's what I was able to do at the time.
That's got to be hard, to just have like a monument
yeah, of what you used to be. yeah. You got to disconnect
your less skilled self.
You got to disconnect the what I am with what I do. You got to disconnect those two things.
Oh, there's a gem. There's a gem. Yeah. Disconnect who you are from what you do.
Yeah, man, you really got to not make those the same thing. Yeah, that was survival for me, because artists tend to be very invested in how the work represents them as an individual, because you feel like you're expressing, there's a lot of expression in it. There really is. And you're like, this is my creative idea.
Illusion of importance too. You're like, oh, I have feelings and I have desire to say things, and so therefore it must be the case that I need to say things because someone must need to hear them, and when it's not responded to in the way you felt it needed to be responded to, there's just this there's something wrong here.
It hurts. It really hurts. So letting go of the ego and letting what I have to say, as you put it, be just as unimportant as any person shouting on a street corner on any soapbox. It's not any more important than anyone else by default. There's going to be gems that happen just like for anybody else. There's going to be moments when someone says, hey, that's a really cool thing you just did or said, but I can't, I'll go crazy and be so sad if I connect my commodities, my pieces, with who I am and like why I'm important. I can't be important because of these paintings. That can't be the thing, because it's like way too volatile. It's not, it's way gonna just fail me.
Circumstantial.
It's terrible.
Like, so are we only worthwhile as people if we can perform? Right. What a dangerous line of thinking.
Man, it's terrible. And I know that I'm a broken record. I say this too much, but people are not going to miss having your performances when you're gone. Your performances are cool. They're special. They're all that, but that is not what breaks people's heart when you're gone. It's not the absence of that. What breaks people's heart is the part of you that pays attention to them. That's what is missed when you're gone. So you got to remember that, you make yourself very valuable when you simply interact and pay attention to the friends around you. And this is where I really changed my thinking and my work. It gave me such freedom to just experiment, produce garbage all the time, and just leave the mission for when I had a paid job to do. I would do that in order to do a good job with mural painting. But I had to let go of the dream that I'm going to be a prestigious artist with lots of works in a gallery. I mean, that's out the window, really. That's kind of not even in the cards for me. That's something that was lost because of my choice of career. You're not going to go into an art museum and see a wall of mural Joe pieces. And
Jonathan says something up here. Jonathan, where you at? Jonathan Scott. He says something about trying to find purpose. It's like we're trying to find purpose. That's why we're so hungry for that work to land, or why we're so interested in how things ought to be done. If there's a right way, we want to do it right. That purpose just feels so good. I've heard it said before that like humans find true freedom terrifying.
Yeah, right. Hey, I got a good word. I got a good picture for that. A kite without a string.
Yeah, that's it. Untethered, directionless, floating, aimless, unbound to anything, no reason to be, no one misses you, nothing is leading you. Right. There is no projection of how things are going to go. There's no reason for any of it to be.
Yeah.
That is madness. That is terrifying. That's
it really
freedom.
is.
You don't want that. We don't. We think we do. We don't. We want to know, why am I here? What am I doing? What do I need to do for this to go well?
Right.
Like, we're hungry for that. I get that. I'm so sympathetic to that, Jonathan. I'm like, oh my God, dude, I spend every day, all day, examining what might my purpose be, and am I honoring that, or am I sabotaging that? And man, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it's what I'm up to most days.
Right. Yeah, that's a good transparent statement. It's like this is very relatable. What it's like part of
I'm childless too. I don't have any kids, so it's like I don't necessarily have, at work I train people and all that, but to just make money is not a great purpose, and I'm not making a lot of money. So even if it were, it's not
relatively. Depends what you're comparing it to.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that purpose, dude. You have to have purpose. I completely agree. With that.
That's why we do this. There is a perceived purpose in the validation from friends. You get together, you talk with friends, and you have a sense of purpose. That's because you validate each other. You're saying this was not. I like this was good hanging out. Let's do it again.
Yeah. Influencing each other is where I get plenty of purpose. I would say, just being aware of influence, being aware of how you're going to influence your neighbor, the way you look at them, what you say or don't say as you pass them. Your colleague, kids, your sibs, whoever you're living with.
Yeah.
You influence everyone around you all day long. Right. There's a lot of purpose in that, I've found.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And I found way too much purpose in the compliments we've talked about this. We probably don't need to belabor the point any further, but we've talked about this. How I was really dependent on the compliments from others. And like, if I didn't get praise after doing something like this, an art project, if someone had criticism instead of praise, it's very hard for me to accept,
Yeah.
So it is true. We do get that. So I think that these are very adjustable parameters in life if you know that they exist. There we go. How's the firework? What do you think of it?
Sucks, man. I'm gonna be honest, Joe. That is not a good looking firework.
Yeah.
If that's all you got,
here's something interesting. I
want
to share this. Look, here's a cool thing about color that I learned in the process of very intensive studies. Here's a cool thing about paint. As you add white to paint, if it's, let's say that it's a pure primary colored pigment like these, rather than something like a shade of gray. So you're working with a vivid tint color. You can lighten it with white, and the intensity will increase like a brighter light. This becomes a brighter, more vivid shade of purple to a point. But there's a tipping point where adding white begins to remove color intensity instead of add it. Now, where that is, it's somewhere in the middle. But you can see that this color, as I lighten, there's a point where it's like, okay, now it's not gaining color intensity. Well, when I'm trying to achieve the look of natural light, I want the sweet spot for the effect of glow. I want to add just enough white to get maximized color intensity, because here's what happens on a microscope level. And the reason I can say this with confidence is that I programmed it to be simulated on in a computer screen. What happens is there's a percentage of white particles in there. If you have just a small percentage, then most of them are under the surface. And if you have this 3D layer in there, if you have this 3D block, and then you might have many white particles in the 3D block, very few of them are on the surface. But now as you increase that percentage, you are putting more and more of those particles on the surface where they are not influenced by the color because they're on the top level. So there's a ratio that gives you the maximized intensity. So I'm trying to hit that sweet spot so that I can get a natural looking purple glow, because that's going to make a world of difference for my purple firework. When I have to go to a much brighter version down here, I go to this real bright purple. Light is a better word than bright. It has hardly any color because it's a high percentage of white. So here's where I've lost intensity. I'll add a little blue to it as well so that we can shift the hue to, away from purple as it gets brighter. A good trick for getting the look of glow. So we'll make the lighter one bluer. I'm going to add lots and lots of white. My intensity is gone, but that's okay because I have my intensity represented in the glow. This is going to be the glowing halo around my little fiery bursts. I still need to make these dark enough, so I'm expecting this to dry to a level of color that we don't see. It doesn't look gray. All right, let's try it. Here's my bright color to put in here. We're going to put little dots in here. Just let me get a little heavier paint so that they're dots instead of squares. I'm going to get kind of a puddle of paint going. I'll wipe this on the edge so that I can dip the end of the brush, just that little corner. That'll give me better little dots. See, like this. So anywhere I have that purple, I'm going to get my glow effect by having the halo of much more intense, darker color, saturated. Intense means saturated. And by having that more saturated color in the middle, I can kind of simulate that effect that we get on a camera when you take a picture of the sunset and the sun is just a big white ball, but you see all the red in the surrounding sky. If you look at it with your eyes in person, if you look at it in person instead of in a photo, then
I prefer to look at things in person.
Yeah, with your eyes. If you look at it with your eyes, man. Well,
yeah, you've seen stuff, but have you seen it with your eyes?
You see all this color on the glowing sun when you look at it in person because you have the color range available, but you don't have that with paint. We lose color when we get into that brightest range. So we create the look of it by putting the color in the halo of dimmer light, because that's where we can have the intensity that resembles shining light is in that middle range. So, you know, that's where my head's
at. You're making purple lightning bugs. Remember those lightning bugs out in Ohio?
Totally. Yeah.
Purple lightning bugs.
All right. Well, we're gonna make some trails of I saw a lot of these kind of things where it was like kind of the palm tree look, where it kind of explodes and leaves these little trails out from the middle, you know. So I'm gonna do my best to put little paths kind of coming down like a palm tree.
Yeah, it makes noise. A little palm tree of fire. We did it. We did it.
Yeah. Oh man. Man, that finale that fireworks show was ridiculous. I mean, I felt myself going to fight or flight. Well, yeah. We were right under them. We were right under them.
Traumatizing, dude. I'm in a city, right, and I'm on this. I'm pretty close to the water. Got this little apartment, and people from the city. There's like 10 million people up in this city of Los Angeles.
That's big. Yeah.
10 million. Like, have you ever visualized 1 million people? Multiply that by 10. You know,
that's crazy. Yeah,
it's a lot of people. A lot of them like to come out to the coast and watch the fireworks on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Well, that means I have a war zone outside my place all day long.
Oh,
dude,
man.
I kid you not. There's like gunpowder smoke wafting through the air. The street lamps are fogged with gunpowder smoke.
Yeah. Sounds like an apocalyptic movie scene.
There's like window shaking explosions happening at random well into the night, you know, 2 a.m. still just boom, you know, like, oh my God, you know, like.
Well, Ben, if you can't beat them, join them.
It is so reminiscent of, well, I mean, I've never been in a war zone, but it feels like what war zone might feel, you know, like, gosh, that's unnerving.
Yeah. I should play the little video I took. I had just randomly said, I said, you know what? I wanted to do an experiment. You know how you do fireworks? When you go look at fireworks, and the bang is always after the flash because there is some distance and the sound travels slower than light. Yeah, we're all familiar with that, right? You see that like that, you know? Yeah. It's the flash, then the bang. So I was thinking, oh, it'd be cool to put that into an editing program and scoot the audio up so that you see the bang, put them in sync, like you're right there, like you're in the fire. And I wonder if that would give you a perception of being in it instead of observing from a distance, because we're so accustomed to that instant sound being when something is close.
Yeah, sound moves slow, dude. I noticed this. I was up on a hilltop the other day, and I was looking out across the city, and I was watching fireworks being shot off in all the different cities.
Yeah.
In this big vast metropolis, and from up there, you can kind of see, and you're looking out, and sound moves so slow. You'll see these explosions, just boom, you know, this big bright, you know.
Yeah.
And then it'll just be dead silent for like 10 seconds, you know, and then you're just like, you can watch. It was really fun to like look at the explosion.
Yeah.
And then imagine that there's this wave of sounds like coming and like just ripping through everything it's going through on its way to me, and then boom, the moment of impact, it hits me, you know. Like, that's just so
totally,
man, that tickles my funny bone to visualize sound waves moving through space.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's cool.
No, man, not 700 miles per hour round brush. I don't think it moves that fast, dude. I mean, maybe I'm gonna have to.
No, it does. I think it does. I think he's got that right.
700 miles an hour.
I think so. That is not as, when you're talking about seconds to get to you from a large distance, it adds up. The math works. Yeah, I think that is accurate.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because a sonic boom occurs Mach 1, when a jet goes faster than the sound's ability to get away from the jet, you know, it like feeds back and overlaps on itself and piles up into a massive boom. That is so fascinating to me.
We perceive like milliseconds of, when a video has the audio slightly off, we perceive like, this from editing.
Oh, I do. Yeah. If someone's mouth is moving like a 24th of a second off. Yeah. It feels weird.
And so you know that it doesn't take much to detect that there's a delay. So that it can feel like a big delay, but the truth is, it's when we measure it, it's not that long.
Well, we're so good. Our brains are so good at putting together sight and sound. It's part of why I love cinema, to be honest. Is because of how engrossing it is to the human. You know, you see things and you hear things in a certain synchronization. It just possesses you, you know? Totally. And our ability to detect when that's working or when it's abnormal or whatever is just so keen. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, right. I love orange and purple together. I was thinking it'd be cool to put some orange sparklies. Fireworks are fun because there's not rules about what can and can't happen. It's just
man. Hey, Tom's got a rule here. He says lightning count from flash to boom, each 4 seconds per mile. So
okay, a little trick for seeing the distance, for getting the distance.
From flash to boom is 1 mile every 4 seconds. Everybody, you learn it here first.
That's nice. Then you know if you're in the danger zone. All right.
We used to do that when we were kids, but I think we had our math off. We were looking like lightning to boom in Ohio and like tornado storms and stuff.
Yeah.
But we thought it was like 1 second per mile.
I think Pete made a cool discovery. I remember him explaining this. I thought this was very clever. He noticed that there's a very different sound for lightning that strikes side to side from your perspective versus lightning that goes toward you or away from you. So there's a different sound, and you can predict it and expect it. Like the sound of the thunder is distinctly different if the bolt travels away or toward versus straight to the side. You get a different sound.
Well, now we got Round Brush going. Now he's coming up with some Einstein, and he's talking about the theory of relativity. And,
we got an exciting subject here.
Yeah, man. I mean, if we could tie that back into painting, we can absolutely go into relativity.
Yeah, totally. It's all relative, man. It is a fun subject. I like it. It's just that it gets, the problem I always run into with that subject is that there's often a tidal wave of passion that's hard to get on board with about the way things are. And it feels to me like really highly questionable stuff. That's the problem I encounter with that often. Because
like with science, with physics theory.
Science, physics, quantum physics. I think I've noticed that people tend to get very invested in whether or not they understand how things work, right? So when you encounter someone that has really spent a lot of time thinking about this, it gets heated real easy, For example, one of the most heated discussions, like in conspiracy theories, is it's a good. I'll say this since we're probably winding up near the end of our podcast, because it could ignite.
Away now.
Could ignite some animosity. Like, is the Earth flat? Is popular, annoying, super annoying for those who are like. On the side of let's stick with the progress we've made and the understanding that's working for us, that the Earth is round. But people that are saying, these people that say it's flat have a real good argument. And now that is extremely irritating, because it feels so, well, I'm not going to say why. I just noticed this in the topic of science and physics, because it has to do what things are and how they work. And it's really hard to stay lighthearted and say, okay, man, whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean, it seems like you're dealing with the very precarious border between what people can scientifically justify and where they run out of their ability to do that. And so they just start to believe.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if you are navigating that terrain of where someone's scientific understanding ends and where they're just now forced to have to believe or not, it's going to be very upsetting for you to discount what they believe because they won't have any sort of justifiable rebuttal. And so they're forced to just sit with your challenge to their understanding of themselves. You know, but it's very combative for sure.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with that. But here's another angle on that is back to the supposed tos of life.
Sure.
Scientific understanding is a big supposed to that is hard to justify. You know, that it is not, in my mind, it is not necessarily the end all for truth. Science is a process that is a useful tool, but it's hard to prove that it is the pathway to truth. It's hard to prove.
Science is how you show somebody something that you otherwise would just have to believe. That's what science is. It's how you show somebody something. It's by definition,
the scientific method.
It's by definition, it's something you can demonstrate, you can repeat, and you can explain, right? That's what qualifies as science. It's a method. It's not a revealer of truth. It's just a method that says, I don't just believe this. Watch, I can show it to you.
But it gets held up. Yeah, right. You're right about that, but it gets held up as
it's your if then thing, right? If I whatever, then that, right? That's science.
Right. Agreed. But when you get into the realm of truth, I think there is a worthy differentiation to be made, you know, between the scientific method and how we find truth. You know, for a lot they're
true to you. So, you know, the word truth is one built on relative perception to begin with.
Yeah. I think that relativity is justified in that, you know, that's all I'm saying. I'm not taking stances on popular arguments or what's true, but you know, it's important to me to try to view things from as many angles as possible. And I was really intrigued by the ability for so many people to go back to the earth is flat when it kind of hit the mainstream, hit the internet. You know, I was super fascinated by that because it was something, not because of how unjustified or ridiculous. I'm not trying to insult, because I think that many people will watch this and maybe have that view, and I don't want to insult anybody. But just fascinating to me that so many years of like, I would call it progress, but just agreed perception can be turned around like that. It's just fascinating. You know, it's like, well, let's revisit this. Let's rethink if this is even true. And I was thinking, gosh, surely that's set in stone for everybody, but it's not. And so then I'm forced to acknowledge that just because it makes no sense to me doesn't mean that I don't think that it would be right for me, because it doesn't make sense to say it's completely false. I don't think that'd be right. Opinions are welcome, you know what I mean? Opinions are welcome, but I want to see the angles.
Joe, you're welcome to believe the world's flat. I just don't think that's going to do you any favors in your life, you know?
Agreed. And so then we're back to the experiment, and what is the if then? What is the cause and effect? I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, if someone comes to me and they're like, the world's flat and you're brainwashed, whatever, for believing otherwise, and we never went to the moon, and the commies are in charge of everything. It's like, all right, cool, whatever.
Well, let's be
Good
careful.
luck with that.
Let's be careful, because these are multifaceted subjects that each stand on their own. It's not like one person believes them all.
An objective take, you know.
Well, like, it is very common to find one person that you're annoyed by that believes all of them, right? But you just put them all into one sentence, like,
well, I'm
they're
saying
all
if out of the box things, right? So less than mainstream ideas, go for it.
Yeah.
It's no consequence to me, you know. I don't think it's going to help you out much in your life.
But okay, I have to argue.
It's yours.
I have to argue.
It's yours to shape. It's your river. Go float it, you know?
Yeah, it is. And that is what I did in my career. You know, there was nobody
telling me. Canvas.
There was nobody telling me that I should pursue the things that I was pursuing. And as a matter of fact, the consensus about what makes a primary color still is not in harmony. If I would have accepted the standard prescribed belief, I would not have the ability to give you the answers that people come to me for today. So it's given me freedom. So all I'm saying is, it was an unpopular, unprescribed route that I went on. So I don't dismiss things just because there's a great number of humanity that dismisses it as broken thinking. You know, I just want to see it from all angles and give every crazy thought fair consideration when it comes up.
Well, here's to the crazy thoughts, guys. Here's to the crazy thoughts.
I mean, I feel like my life is mostly crazy thoughts. That's me. It's mostly crazy.
Love dogs, avoid people. That's a great name. I just started watching, and wow, that grass is amazing.
Hey, all right. That was the first thing we painted. Thanks. Okay, here's a red firework. See, I did my glow first. I like to do the glow first. And then I'm using orange. So whenever I want a good glow effect, I shift away from purple toward yellow. Think of a rainbow. Away from purple toward yellow will give you a nice glow effect, just a little. So I have a red glow. Now I'm taking orange and white to make my glowing dots right here, like this. We're gonna go like this, and I'm gonna make this. Maybe I should make a different kind. I'm making them all. Well, I kind of like the theme. I'm gonna make this have that same formation where it's like a palm tree coming out. How are we doing on time?
It's 8:34 Pacific
okay.
Standard Time.
When we start about 7:10? Yeah, we did. Yeah, we'll go 1.5 hours. We'll go to 8:30.
Well, Roundbrush says he's gonna keep his atheist mouth shut. That's an interesting response. I don't recommend that.
He's gonna put that in there.
Do your thing.
Hey everybody, I'm an atheist, but that
mouth shut kind of guy. I don't think that's a great way to live. I'd rather the conflict, you know.
Well, there's an amount. There's an amount that we have tested the limits on that one, Ben. We have found that there's an amount of conflict that really just makes everything worse.
Yeah. Well, you know, my mind comes from a place of curiosity, not judgment. I'm as lost as the next guy. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, I find that when my attitude is better, I'm coming from that place, but there are times when my attitude is worse and I'm trying to set the people around me straight. And that's the person I'm trying to train myself to be less of these days. these days. And as I age, I'm feeling less confident that I am the compass for the rest of the world. You know, it's very, very natural to feel like you're the compass that points to truth when you're younger.
Well, what's the alternative? You know, that's what I was trying to say. The alternative is to acknowledge that you're lost, that you don't know, that you're confused. Yeah. And that's not a thing most people are willing to do, but you are.
But let me propose a happy medium, is that there is a thing called intuition. And there is this satisfaction in acknowledging what your intuition tells you and accepting that it's no less likely that that's true than other things. And just because you can't explain it or justify it doesn't mean that your intuition is wrong. And you might be like living right in the center of truth and purpose by intuitively doing what you feel like you're made to do. And it could be that simple. Just, you know, perhaps there's value in letting go of what should be and learning what you want and just going after what you want. How about that?
Yeah, let's circle it back, man. Maybe it doesn't matter getting it right, you know? Maybe just honoring what it is you want, because that's the way you were made and that's the hand you were dealt. So contribute that, because it's what you are before you run out of time. And it's not right or wrong, man. It's just you.
Yeah, right. That is just as, you know, like I can't prove it wrong is what I'm saying. You get told a lot of stuff.
Like, hey, the earth is flat, you guys are full of it, then, you know, do your thing, man. Run with your flat earth self.
Yeah. Well, you know, I put less stock in being on the side of truth these days. I try to understand and find truth, but I want to be compatible with friendship that doesn't fit my paradigm. You know, it's just a goal. You know, because what is the consequence? So let's say that somebody's got it wrong. Okay, one person saying the earth's flat, another person saying the earth's round. Well, what is the great consequence in your life of not putting that person in their place? What is the terrible consequence of just letting it be, and then continuing, not just letting it be, but continuing to value them as a person with a human perspective in this mystery of life that we're living? Like, I think that's the hard part, is continuing to value somebody. Dismissing somebody and being like, yeah, okay, you got it wrong, we're not friends. I think that comes very natural. But saying, you know, that definitely doesn't line up with my paradigm, but, you know, let's still be friends. Let's revisit this dialogue whenever it's appropriate. That's just staying open. I like the idea of that.
Well, you know, the human experience is siloed enough. You know, we're already inside our own bodies. We already have this dreadful sense of loneliness, this dreadful hunger to have purpose, to belong, to fit into a unit, to be needed, to be valued.
Yeah.
You know, if we go around carrying fringe beliefs, that's going to risk us being kicked out of that warm embrace of society. And that's terrifying. People aren't going to want to do that unless they find a society of others that are just like-minded. So all the flat earth people go run off, hang out with each other. Flat earth conventions, you know, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's because the risk to the individual is, you know, you risk isolation from security. You know, it's
you don't want to do that. Yeah.
And you know, this is why that wasn't even my point, dude. My point is this. All right, so Joe comes at me and he's like, hey man, the earth is flat, and you know, deal with it.
This is our running example.
Right? You just come at me with that and you're convicted. You're like, it's true. It is the T word, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a friend come at me and just say it just like that.
So what's the risk to me to just let that fly, you know?
Well, what's let it fly mean? What is let it fly?
Challenge it, to
Yeah,
not posit a scientific response that would say, based on this and that repeatable, observable thing that you and I both can see, what you're saying doesn't compute, you know?
Yeah.
The reason I wouldn't do that is because I'm secure in what I believe. I don't need your validation to tell me that the world's round, you know? It's like if people are when you're challenged, if there's a crazy person on the sidewalk and they're screaming at you, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. You're not going to look up at the sky and be like, you idiot, it's not falling. Prove it to me. You can't prove the sky's falling.
It's not worth engaging, is what
you're going to let it go.
Yeah.
But if you're on the verge of believing the sky is falling, but you're not
there's
sure
need. Yeah, there's some need there. Yeah.
It's going to be a challenge to whether or not you think you actually know, or how convinced you are of your own thing. And so when others' perceptions challenge our conviction on our own thing, that's when it gets heated. That's when people are like, well, I have to prove it to you now because I'm not exactly sure anymore. I'm having to prove it to myself, you know? So you can just let people's perceptions and perspectives exist, even if they're very different and quote unquote,
just let it be
right or wrong to you, you know?
Yeah.
Like if what someone's saying makes you very uncomfortable, like maybe examine what you believe yourself, you know?
Well, the frustrating thing about it is that a person that believes something that is so wrong to your ears can still have great wisdom in other subjects. And that's very frustrating because I'll speak for myself. I naturally want a person to either be on the side of truth or not, but it's not so binary. It's not so like that. In one subject, the person might have what I view as extreme doctrinal beliefs that don't line up with reality, but then they might be living a life that is flourishing and happy. And I am in the dumps way more often than they are. And I'm like, okay, who's doing it better? That's very frustrating. That's what happens in life.
Yeah, well, you're returning to the merit-based system again, you know, believing that humans receive what they deserve, you know.
Well,
which I just haven't seen be the case, you know.
So what if a person is something? Yeah, but there is in my mind, there is no deserve. It's just like if we were giving merit based on results, then there are people getting great results out of life that have beliefs that are way far out from what we would think. So here's the great hypocrisy that I sense. The great hypocrisy is a person who says, I don't like my life. I don't like the way things are. I'm I'm a rat in a cage, and I don't like it. I don't like reality. And then viciously defend. Yeah.
Despite all my pain, I'm still just a rat in a cage.
But the great hypocrisy to me is when that person viciously defends their paradigm as true. That doesn't make sense.
Well, it's unsettling to realize that you're very confused and lost. That's very unsettling. So people will fight pretty hard to avoid that feeling, whether or not it's actually helpful.
But if you hate your reality, what's in it for you to keep it alive? You know what I'm saying?
Shame is a motivator.
Okay, that's a good.
Avoid shame of foolishness.
That's a good answer. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, well, we figured life out, Joe. That's the good news. The bad news is nobody cares, and
nobody cares. Hey,
done watching.
Something to talk about. It's something to talk about.
Yeah. Hey, Bill Gates is a perfect example of that. Mavis says, referring to his marital failure. Oh, Bill Gates, your marriage screwed up. Sorry, bro. He said he wasn't good at everything. Hey, can't be good at everything.
Yeah.
He got the visionary stuff. He didn't get the relationship stuff.
Yeah.
You have to work on that, Bill.
Well, I feel like I find my path, for me to summarize my thoughts for this live stream, my path was very unconventional. And I had to learn on my own that a lot of my thoughts were, let's just say, broken by nature, by self-defeat. They're self-defeating things, and I found it on my own. But if I had not embraced going the unprescribed route and embracing things that were against popular paradigm, then I would most definitely not be in the middle of this very satisfying career that I have.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna agree on things about the way things are. Humans have never done this. We're not gonna do it this hour and a half either. But what we are gonna agree on is that considering perspectives that you don't naturally have can be illuminating.
Yeah, can be. Yeah. So being a good listener is a valuable thing, and getting away from the supposed tos. I love the feeling of doing what I'm not supposed to do now. It's been very, very liberating practice in my life.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's you and I both, man. Rebels.
Yeah. Like, why?
If we were cool with doing what we were supposed to, man.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have ended up like this.
Oh, I have to admit that I've embraced a lot of prescribed ideas because.
Hey, can you pan that camera down a little bit while you work on that grass? I want to watch you make that grass.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I finished my fireworks. So they're simple.
How do you feel about the fireworks, guys? Tell us how you feel about the fireworks. What does he need to do before we wrap this up?
Yeah, right.
How you feel about life, belief versus truth, yada, yada, yada.
It's too late for that. We got to wrap that one up. I think I went a little bit bright.
Religion, blah, 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 blah.
A little bit bright on the greens here. I could have gone darker on the greens.
Hey, you know what? I heard this once. There was a study conducted about political leanings, and I'm not going to talk about political leanings. I'm going to talk about how people feel about political leanings.
Yeah, let's hear it.
A survey was taken about would you want to hang out with someone that has your same political leanings? And there's a certain number of people that say, yeah, I would prefer to be around people that have my political leanings.
Yeah.
Right? And then they ask them, would you prefer to be around someone that talks about their political leanings a lot, as long as they're the same as yours?
Yeah.
Far fewer people want to hang out with you if you talk about your political leanings.
Yeah. Interesting.
Whether or not they are in sync with your own. People hate hearing about your politics and your religion. They hate it. People hate it. Even if they are in lockstep with you, they'll be like, "Oh, this just got really political, or this got religious, or whatever."
Yeah.
And they're like, "I'm out. I hate it."
It doesn't have a nice vibe to you. It's pretty universal that it's because, I think what needs to be admitted is that the biggest truth in life is that we eat when we're hungry, not when we're convinced that we should eat. It's not about truth. I think it's hard to admit that so much of it isn't actually about truth. So then what happens in political conversation is all this passion that is pretending that truth is the main thing, but it's actually just this whole slew of emotional reactions. It's not honest. It ends up being less than honest, in my opinion.
Yeah. Is that a little mustache you're putting on that firework, or what?
I just thought a mustache would be cool.
Mustaches are in. Kids are doing the mustache. How many people in here got? I'll bet somebody in this room right now has a mustache. One of you does.
Yeah,
which one?
That's funny. That's funny. I was just chatting with.
Chat it up. Where's the mustacher?
I was just chatting.
They're hip. They're back.
With the young people.
Don't know that a mustache used to make you look like a pedophile.
My son's crowd, I think people still know because they have those old.
They're like Tom Selleck,
Yeah.
So you want to be a pedophile or Tom Selleck? Take your choice.
Yeah.
Two not great choices.
Hey, I think Tom Selleck's all right.
That big old mustache, man. Can you imagine Tom Selleck trying to have an ice cream shake?
Oh, I don't want to sit down to that lunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want
Try
to look
having
at
an
that.
ice cream shake across from Tom Selleck and then tell me you like mustaches.
Yeah. You know, there's a place for them. There we go.
Round brush, man. I'm not gonna say that word, but oh my God, I feel your pain, dude. I feel your pain.
Oh, I can imagine. He's talking about a body part. I can hear it.
He's talking about politics.
Oh, okay, I was wrong.
So Nanette said, would more of the color of the fireworks be reflected in the grass or not? Nanette, thank you for that painting relevant question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're right that that's good of you to notice that. I think that this will look nicer, more natural at a glance if I put those, because it's like one of the only lights around. So if I go more reddish on the grass, let's do a quick experiment. You know, it's like
Dancing Brush says Batman ruined the fireworks show.
That's it.
Batman got a paratroop in there. Just
hey, we gotta go. We're out of time. We're out of time.
That's it.
Let's put some of these colors.
The silhouettes.
I'm just gonna do a quick wash of orange on here just to get more of a reddish tone to the grass.
Canvas. I want to see you do that wash of orange.
Yeah, well, okay. I was just doing like a light watery coat just to experiment with the color and see, because I think there's a lot to that. It's so green, and I think it would look better to pull in because we have a light source here that's very red and purple, and that's going to make a very reddish light on this grass. So yeah, I think that'd be a big difference maker. Really tie the picture together. Get those colors. You know, I don't nail it every time.
No.
All right.
No, because if you did, you're not learning anything.
That's it. Yeah, you got to try stuff. Okay. That's it. That's it, folks. That's the finished piece right there. Happy 4th of July yesterday.
We did it, you guys. Sorry, Round Brush. We're independent now.
Yeah.
It happens, man.
All right, we gotta get out of here. I promise to be home by 9.
Spirit with all their explosives and do what I want. It's the 4th, baby.
That's it. Hey, good talking to everybody. We went overtime, and now I'm in a hurry to get out of here, so I'm fading out. We're going to just
get on out of here, man. You got a good day ahead of you guys. I do too.
Yep. Good talking to everybody. We're just speaking through a black screen at the moment.
It's all right. It's calming. The night.
All right. Have a good week. Finish. Leave site. Changes you may not be saved. Leave site. Boy, it's like I got to be logged.